Because of their willingness to continually find ways to improve our services to the people of Michigan and their innovations, I'm here to announce a number of new steps coming from them that our office is in partnership with our frontline workers, taking immediately to increase the number of Michigan citizens and residents that we're able to serve each day and improve the level of service that we provide them. First, we have immediately added 350,000 new appointments for branch offices. They are online and available between now and the end of the fiscal year, September 30th. Half of them are already available in the system, and the other half will be released every weekday as next day appointments. This amounts to more than a 25% increase in the number of people the department will serve in the months ahead. It addresses some of the backlog, and we're able to do this after discussions with our frontline workers who, concerned about the chatter here in Lansing to revert back to a broken take a number system, suggested that they could work harder and faster to be able to handle more transactions each day efficiently and quickly. It's an extraordinary testament, not just to their dedication to the department, but their recognition that having residents schedule their visits ahead of time is a vastly superior way of doing business. But that's not all. We're also announcing today that as we emerge out of the pandemic, we recognize there is value in being able to walk up to a branch and talk with a member of our team. So this month, we will begin placing greeters at dozens of our busiest offices' front doors. This will mean if someone walks up to an office, the greeter will meet them, assist them, and will tell them if there are any immediate appointments available. If not, they'll assist them in scheduling a time for them to return to the office and be taken care of. This creates an in-person way for people to schedule an appointment at a branch office, and in doing so, online over the phone remains an option as well. This option will be available at all offices, even those without a dedicated greeter, when counter staff is able to approach the door in between serving other residents. But in about just over half of our busiest offices, there will be a greeter specifically dedicated for this purpose. This will also enable us to implement a third new policy, a priority system to enable individuals who need disability placards to be seen right away upon arrival at any branch office. While we still encourage them to let us know ahead of time that they're coming by scheduling their visit online or by phone, if any person needing a disability placard arrives at any office, they simply need to tell the greeter that's why they have come, provide the necessary documentation, and they'll be taken care of as soon as possible. Now, these are just three of a number of new solutions that we have in the works. They're the three that we can implement immediately and announce today. We'll be announcing more in the weeks ahead, but I want to be abundantly clear. We're making improvements to our department in the absence of any support from the legislature. We're going it alone, but we don't have to, because the inefficiencies that we've talked about these last few months were the direct result of decades of disinvestment and neglect in this department by the legislature and by previous secretaries. They cut staff 40%. They closed 46% of our branch offices, while our state's population increased 10% and the number of vehicles increased 25%. Then, this year, in the midst of a pandemic, the legislature made matters worse by ignoring our request that expiration extensions be granted on a rolling basis. What that meant was they extended every license and vehicle plate in the state to expire on the same day, March 31st of this year, placing 13 months of pent-up demand on the system all at once. And then, coincidentally, they began attacking this department and our staff shortly after March 31st in April. But I'm not here to play political games. And I'm thankful for the legislators, frankly, on both sides of the aisle, who get it and who've expressed a willingness to work with us to address decades of inaction and disinvestment. I'm grateful for their partnership. And for example, Representatives Jolie Brixey and Stephanie Young, who have proposed a one-time investment of $25 million in this department using federal COVID funding. This investment would add necessary staff and overtime hours at our offices. If that's enacted, it would enable us to serve another 500,000 or 500,000 residents between now and the end of the fiscal year by enabling us to extend our hours and our office operations and hiring additional staff to fill those extra hours. If that's enacted, our capacity imbalance is solved. There will be an abundance of next day and advance appointments for anyone who wants them. The solution is right there. And if their colleagues in the House and Senate sincerely want to improve state services, they should embrace it. I'm truly grateful for the hardworking men and women who've given years, if not decades, of their lives to the public service right here at the Department of State. Their willingness to step up and work harder and do more to serve the people of Michigan has inspired me beyond words throughout the pandemic, but importantly also in these last 2 weeks, as they have proposed data-driven solutions to squeeze the most productivity out of every minute they have got to serve Michigan citizens and residents. Finally, the strategies I'm announcing today are just a handful, again, that we'll be implementing immediately. We're not done. We'll be announcing more in the weeks ahead, so please stay tuned. And the bottom line is that whether legislative leaders are with us or not, the people of this department will not give up on our mission of continuing to find ways to provide convenient and efficient services for all Michiganders, and neither will I. So now I'll take your questions. Thanks.
So we're going to do a rotation. We'll take a question from folks who are here in person, and then we'll take one.
Secretary, what would you say to the residents who don't have license plates yet for their new vehicles? They're driving without license plates on the back of their cars, and they could get pulled over by the cops. Should they be driving at all?
Well, we encourage those residents to go online today and make an appointment because there are abundance available. As people can see, there are next day appointments available every day and even more as of today than there have been in the past. So we're working to make sure that anytime anyone needs to go to a branch office, they're able to do so at a time of their convenience. And then once they do, they're able to be seen without having to wait. Now we are working with law enforcement and others to make sure people know that in this window over the next several months, we are emerging out of a pandemic and dealing with a serious backlog of transactions like title transfers that you mentioned. So we're going to continue to find ways and to find partners to find ways to go through this backlog and get us back to normal. And the changes I've announced today are a significant step in that direction. And what I'd also say to those drivers in particular, I'd ask them to contact their legislators directly because we've given the legislators a solution to solve this immediately. And if legislators enact that, we can have more people, more hours available, and more appointments so that anyone, again, who needs to see someone right away is able to do so.
Because right now they're violating the law, right?
Again, there's lots of different reasons for people driving without plates. Sometimes people just don't know they can get their renewal online or at a self-service station. But in situations, again, where people have gotten a new car and need a new plate for whatever reason, we encourage them now to go online and take advantage of the tens of thousands of new appointments that we've made available as of yesterday, and that will be available every day. But at the same time, we're working with law enforcement and the legislature to find other solutions, as I mentioned.
Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, thank you. Just to clarify, the 350,000 appointments you're talking about are still through the online appointment system. They're not
I'm not sure if
walk-in
you've unmuted yourself.
appointments.
Could you please try again and ask your question?
Hi, can you hear me now? Hello? Hello? Anyone hear me? I'm unmuted.
Hi, Dave.
We got you now.
Okay, thank you. To clarify, the 350,000 appointments you're talking about are just the online appointments, not for people to walk in and make a new appointment unless they're part of that priority system?
Nope, there are appointments for everyone. These are simply new slots that have been made available specifically by taking what previously were 20-minute slots and shortening them down to 10-minute slots. Because again, our staff have said, you know what, we can take something that takes us 20 minutes and we'll work extra efficiently to get it done in 10 and find other efficiencies as well so that we can essentially cut that appointment time in half and free up another 10 minutes to serve someone else. So that's where that particular piece is coming from. And it's system-wide. So whether someone calls our call center, and I should notice we have quadrupled the number of appointments that have been able to be made daily at that call center by giving our call center more people and also more access points to the appointments. And then, of course, there's the online model, and then people can walk up and either, again, if someone walks up to an office, they'll be greeted, they'll be given an appointment if one's immediately available to be seen right away, or what's most likely is they'll be given an appointment to come back at a time of their convenience, but they'll have that additional opportunity to make an appointment. And again, the appointments in the system are available all 3 ways.
Just to follow up on that,
Mhm.
20 minutes down to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Have you seen something in the data that showed that the average time was 10 minutes? Are you worried at all that you're going to now get a new kind of backlog of people who are
Yeah.
taking longer than 10 minutes?
A couple of things have changed. One, we had been piloting this in a few offices just to see, and this has been as we implemented appointments over the past year, figuring out the sweet spot of how long they need to be. And so we started seeing, and we have been seeing for the past few months now, if there are ways to shorten that time carefully. And usually, so one, I feel, again, we're prioritizing increasing access, frankly, and the expectation based on our data that any waits may be minimal. They'll certainly be shorter than the waits that were under the walk-in system. But then in addition to that, we want to find ways. Well, in addition to that, we've recently upgraded our computer system to up until about March or April, we had 2 computer systems, an old one and a new one we were phasing in. And so that created inefficiencies where our workers had to shift between one or the other. We've now integrated all that into one system. So we think that will also enable more efficiencies. It's more of a technical answer, but why they feel they can move faster.
Just somewhere. So it's shaving just some of our appointments. Sergio Martinez with Bridge, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you and good morning, Secretary Benson. Appreciate you talking with us today. I have a quick question here. How many next day appointments? I mean, you said that out of these 350,000, half of them will be next day appointments?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, and
So,
sorry, go ahead.
So about half of them are available right now. In fact, I checked throughout today and yesterday. You can actually see in many offices, you can make an appointment for this week or for next week. And in addition to that, every day there will be thousands more appointments released for the next day option for citizens. So we basically split them in half and made half available at any time between now and the end of September, and half available that will be allocated on a daily basis.
So the 350, just so I understand the time frame, is between now and September 30?
Correct.
Okay.
And again, because remember, the reason why I believe coincidentally there's been so much focus initiated in this moment. There's lots of reasons, but there is a backlog that was created by the legislature's decision to extend all licenses and plates until this one date. And so, and then there also is a backlog created by office closures, actual closures, where at the last minute there was a COVID exposure and we would have to close the entire office for several weeks, moving all appointments to another office. That's been a reality oftentimes, as I've told many of you before, we could have up to a dozen offices closed due simply to that. This is actually the first week that we haven't had any offices, knock wood, closed due to a COVID exposure. So that's also, I think, enabled us to more boldly move forward with these types of efficiencies. And we're just going to, as every week that we get further and further away from this pandemic, we're going to have less of a backlog and more of those pandemic related challenges that will increase our efficiencies even more.
Eric Lloyd, Channel 9 and 10, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, I just wanted to ask, just a week ago, 2 weeks ago, you had asked for $25 million saying it was essential.
Yep.
Now you're going alone and you're doing it without that funding, but you're still hoping for help from the legislature in the future. What if they just see you guys being more efficient, being faster, and say, was that 25 million really essential?
It is essential, and here's why. I mean, first, as I made clear to the legislature and have in several conversations since, I have a responsibility to serve the people of Michigan, and I'm going to fulfill that responsibility by finding ways to, as we've announced today, work independently to increase the efficiency of our services. That's really what we've had to do throughout the pandemic and frankly, since I took office. Yet it doesn't have to be that way, and we can do even more and implement other, as I mentioned, that I have other changes in the works. A lot of those can be implemented more efficiently if the legislature invests in our infrastructure. So by sort of two things I think to note from a budget standpoint that are actually quite critical. First of all, so much of many of the challenges this department has created has endured was created by budget cuts. Secondly, the 25 million we've requested would immediately enable us to fund additional hours, being able to stay over, open some offices earlier or open some later, and additionally hire more staff to work through the pandemic-related backlog. It's a direct use of the COVID funds that were allocated to the state for these types of purposes. And that's why we've asked the legislature to do this so that we could add even more appointments. I want us to have an abundance of appointments so that anytime, even if people need to move around or change a date, that it's a free, that making an appointment with our office is a seamless, easy thing to do. And then guarantees when you show up, you'll be seen right away. So the more investment we get in this 25 million is critical. If that 25 million, I actually spoke to Representative Brixey this morning about this. If that 25 million comes through, we will have an abundance of appointments available for our citizens to make, to work with our office in convenient ways. And it's something that, frankly, I think legislators would be, if they support it and enact it, proud to return to their districts and brag about having helped us solve this problem, helped us solve this backlog. And then the last thing I'll just say on the budget piece, Eric, is, the current legislative proposal has cut the current fiscal year budget for next year has cut an additional close to $9 million from our department budget. And it has consistently, the legislature has consistently cut our budget. And so when they say things like your call center could be working better, or you could have more people available to serve residents, yeah, would love that. But that we can't meet those expectations and goals if the legislature doesn't work with us to ensure we have the resource to do so. That said, we're continuing to do as much as we can with a shrinking pot, and we'll continue to do that. But it certainly would make everything more smooth and efficient and seamless if the legislature were willing to kind of put down the political games and just work with us to make data-driven solutions and invest in our department. Okay.
Secretary, can you remind me what happened with Ruth Johnson's previous program where you hop in line? There were some problems with that, right?
Yeah, we were actually the last state to do away with that program. When I took office, I visited every branch office and I saw that great idea, didn't work. And the reason why it didn't work was because the algorithm, it was actually a computer system. You would go in, enter your number, you would get a text saying, welcome, come back in 75 minutes and you'll be seen. And then you'd get another text saying, come back in 10 minutes or you're next. The algorithm did not effectively and accurately predict how much time you had to wait. And so you would be told you'll be next, you'll show up and you'll have to wait another 90 minutes. Or sometimes the flip would happen where you'd be told, come back in 120 minutes. And then in 5 minutes, or I'm exaggerating, but in 30 minutes, you'd get a text saying, you're next, come back right away or you'll lose your spot. So it just didn't work. And then one of the biggest problems with it was that, say you show up at 4:30, our office is closed at 5. And if it said 4:30, you enter your number and come back in an hour, you can't. You have to be in the office by 5. And what it would also create is dozens, if not, I don't want to say hundreds, but I imagine there were times where there were that many people who had to come back to an office by 5 in order to be seen. And sometimes our workers would stay until 9, 10 o'clock at night to see everyone because of, again, just the way in which the system worked, and people thought they could show up at 4 and then enter their number in and come back later. So it was just, there were a lot of reasons why it was broken. And it created actually longer wait times. One of the reasons why, as we looked at the data, the wait times did triple during my predecessor's tenure was because this system created a lot of inefficiencies and led to problems where it wrongly predicted the amount of time people would have to wait, and then led to a lot of angry customers as a result.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining me today. Good to see a lot of you in person, and I'm sure we'll continue this conversation in the months ahead. Oh, thanks.
Thanks, Bethany.